So what is a clause in a contract that deals with choice of forum and choice of law? You see these kind of clauses in contracts of every kind, including in any film-related ones. The purpose of a choice of forum clause is to make sure that if there's litigation, that is, that if your production company sues someone or someone sues your production company, it's clear where the lawsuit is going to have to be filed. That is, it may say that any lawsuit relating to the contract has to be filed in California or New York or Pennsylvania or Timbuktu or elsewhere. Here's an example that illustrates why this is important. Suppose that your production company is in California, but you shoot a movie in Fairbanks, Alaska, and you use an Alaska-based catering company to handle your craft services. The Alaska caterer says that you paid them less than what they were owed and they sue you. So let's say they claim that they made 100 crab cakes, but you only paid them for 75 or something like that. Now, because they're based in Alaska, guess where they're going to want to sue you? In a court in Alaska, right? And that's going to be very inconvenient and expensive for you. If the case goes to trial, you're going to have to transport yourself to Alaska for a week or so, however long the trial takes. And you're also going to either have to bring your California lawyers to Alaska and put them up in hotels there or something like that, or you're going to have to hire Alaska lawyers that you may not have worked with before. This is why you include what's called a choice of forum clause in your contract. Using this type of clause, you can dictate where any lawsuit regarding the contract has to take place. You can say in this example that any lawsuit relating to the film has to be filed in California, which is going to be much more convenient for you in the very unfortunate event that you're going to have to get into litigation with your caterer. What about choice of law? A choice of law clause says that if there's litigation regarding your film, the court hearing the case has to apply the law of a particular state or country. What does this mean? So obviously every country in the world has its own body of laws. The United States has its own body of law. France has its own. And then states and provinces and cities and towns and so forth within each individual country also have their own bodies of law. So California has its own set of statutes and court cases and so on. Pennsylvania has its own and so forth. And a choice of law clause allows you to control which states or country's law is going to apply to any dispute that has to do with the contract. Why is this important? Let's take another example. So suppose your production company is based in California, but you shoot a film in Mexico and you use a Mexican catering company. Now here, you want to make sure, if you can get away with it, that you have a choice of forum clause, saying that any litigation relating to the contract is going to have to be in California in the United States, because obviously you'd rather be there than having to litigate in a court in Mexico. Just as a matter of convenience, but you also want a choice of law clause. Why? Because otherwise the Mexican company that's suing you might come into court and argue that Mexican law should apply, right? If a court buys that argument, that's going to create a lot of hassle for you because your California lawyers are going to have to familiarize themselves with Mexican law, and a lot of US lawyers know nothing about Mexican law. Or you're going to have to bring lawyers up from Mexico. And of course, that's going to be expensive, and you're going to have to put them up in a hotel and pay for their flights and so forth as well. So it's going to be a lot more convenient and inexpensive for you if you have a choice of law clause that says that California law is going to govern any dispute that arises out of the contract. Now let's look at an example of this kind of clause here. What's the important language here in this clause? The first part says that this agreement shall be governed by and interpreted under the laws of the state of California without regard to principles of conflicts of laws. I won't get into what conflicts of laws mean because that would really make your eyes glaze over. That kind of thing is really, well, it's interesting to lawyers and first-year law students, but it's not going to be interesting to you. Let's just say this clause means that no matter what the circumstances of the dispute are, California law is going to apply to any court case that relates to the contract. In other words, if a catering company in Mexico sues you based on catering that they did in Mexico, to look at our earlier example, a court where the Mexican company sues you is going to have to apply California law. The second important piece of language is the part that says that any dispute having to do with the contract shall be exclusively submitted to the Superior Court of California for the County of Los Angeles or the United States District Court for the Central District of California. Going back to the example of the Alaska-based catering company, this would mean that if the Alaska company sues you claiming that you didn't pay enough for the crab cakes or whatever, they have to do it in California. And in the case of this example that we're looking at, specifically in the Los Angeles area, which is, of course, much more convenient and inexpensive for you. So I hope that you found this discussion helpful. If you don't know me, I am both a lawyer and an independent filmmaker. And so I certainly understand and sympathize with the struggle of not having a giant budget and not being able to pay lawyers hundreds of dollars an hour, but also not wanting to go on Google and search for random contracts drafted by who knows who and just hoping that they work out. And so I'm hoping to help independent creatives who are in that kind of dilemma. As always, what I say is not legal advice, because if I were going to give you legal advice, I would have to know about your specific situation and understand what your specific needs were. But hopefully this is useful to you as a matter of general information. Thanks for watching this video.